This is the podcast that we ask our guests from in front and behind the camera, how did they get their foot in the door? What was the key to unlocking their success? What's their story?
Hello!
Our guest today was discovered when Steven Spielberg found his screenplay, Gremlins, on the top of a pile of scripts on his desk. Next, he wrote The Goonies. Since then, he's been nominated for an Oscar and directed possibly the most popular Christmas movie of all time, Home Alone. We chat about how he was convinced he was going to be fired from his directorial debut adventures in Babysitting, why his daughter's love of the Harry Potter books led him to direct the first two movies, The Philosopher's Stone and The Chamber of Secrets, working with comedy icon Robin Williams and the lost version of Mrs Doubtfire, and coming full circle and working with Spielberg on his latest movie based on the Richard Osman's hugely popular book, The Thursday Murder Club. Our guest today is writer, director and producer Chris Columbus.
I'd love to ask, my podcast is usually about how someone's career begins, and we have all kinds of people, writers, directors, producers, actors on our podcast, and I always ask, how did that start? You started writing scripts. Where did that come from? Why did you start doing that? Where did it begin?
Ironically, it was like when I was in sort of early high school, I started to watch, they started to show British Hammer horror films on TV.
Oh, yeah.
And I fell in love with them. I fell in love with the Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing, Dracula, and Curse of Frankenstein, and all those horror films. And then I was a huge fan of British rock and roll, which we call the British invasion in America. But, I was a big fan of the Beatles and the Stones and the Kinks, and it goes on. But I really became obsessed with, it's almost my favorite film, A Hard Day's Night, by the Beatles film by Richard Lester. And I watch that film once or twice a year because it's so sort of infectious and charming. And it was really that film and the Hammer horror films and actually seeing The Godfather for the first time and Blazing Saddles, two completely different. All of that sort of recipe really put in my head that I wanted to become a filmmaker.
Wow, The Godfather, that very different things there.
Very different. Both films showed me sort of the potential of what you can do as a director. The Godfather in one very somber, stylistic way, naturalistic, and Blazing Saddles, which is just like, let's break the fourth wall and do whatever we want.
And in terms of picking up your pen for the first time and writing a script, having the balls to be like, right, I'm going to put my ideas to paper. I've tried to write scripts and it's not easy.
Right.
How did that madness come over you to be like, I'm going to attempt this now, write a film?
Well,
script?
I knew I wanted to be a director, and I didn't, I came from a working class family. Both my parents were factory workers. So I knew, I had this thing in the back of my head that if I didn't make it in my chosen profession, which was film, I would be stuck going back to Youngstown, Ohio, and working in a factory. So when you have that sort of hanging over you, makes you work a little bit harder. And I also didn't have money to make an independent film. But my teachers at NYU said, if you write, and you write a film or two that's successful, they will let you direct. So that was in my head. And I realized it costs nothing to sit down with a notebook and a pen. And that's what I did. I forced myself to do it. And you're right. It is lonely. It's just the last thing you want to do is sit alone with your thoughts. But when you get into it, the problem I have with writing these days is it takes me probably an hour to get into it, but once I'm there, I don't want to leave. So it's just committing yourself to going to that place.
Then you've got to have the time as well, because once you commit, I'm doing a rewrite at the moment, and it took me about a week to get back into it, which is not good.
No.
Usually it's quicker than that. But now I'm in, and now I'm kind of a bit twitchy because I want to get back and start writing things
Exactly.
down.
That's the feeling you have.
Yeah. But in terms of, one of your very first films that you wrote was Gremlins.
Right.
That's, pretty strong off the bat, and a very... It's a completely unique film. And you went from that to Goonies. That, on paper, when you see that, you're just like, how does that happen? What was the process of getting something like Gremlins off the ground?
Well, Gremlins was, I had followed, my first film that was made was this...
Was that Reckless?
It was a film called Reckless, which I don't even know if it's streaming. I think you can see it somewhere. It's not a good film. And the director sort of banished me from the set, and it was a really bad experience. And as a result of that, I got the idea for Gremlins and just sort of wrote it on a lark for fun. I wrote it what they call on spec, which is, no one was paying me to write it. So I got to do whatever I wanted. I had no one else to answer to. And then it was sent to, 45, 50 producers who all said no. And luckily, Steven Spielberg was leaving his office on a Friday evening, and he passed his assistant's desk. And again, pure luck. Gremlins was the script on top of a pile of scripts on her desk. And he saw the title and thought, that's interesting. And he picked it up, took it home, read it. Wow. And then I was living in this loft in New York, which, by the way, was not a romantic, beautiful loft like you see in movies.
In Ghost.
It was a terrible, gross loft with mice. And I got a call at the loft that it was Steven Spielberg on the phone. I thought it was one of my friends pranking me, and it was. Wow. I recognized the voice, and I thought, oh my God, it really is Steven Spielberg. Flew me out to Los Angeles, and that was sort of the beginning. Steven was really responsible for my entire career, and now we're together again on Murder Club, which is fantastic.
Amblins they're doing this one as well, aren't they?
Well, it's the first movie I've directed for Steven, so it's really it's an interesting situation because I was very nervous because he was coming to set on one of the days. And I thought, Steven's never seen me direct. I hope that I don't let him down. Yeah. I really, because he's like my godfather in the industry. He's the guy I look up to, and I really I continually want to impress him. And he was like a little kid. He was so excited to be on the set that he took out his phone and was filming behind the scenes footage. It was fantastic.
That's amazing that even to this day you still feel nervous. So I mean, it makes sense. Steven Spielberg is just watching you direct. That's pretty intense.
Well, you don't know, it's sort of like he came on a day that we were doing one of the most complicated shots in the film. It was a single shot without any cuts.
Which one was it?
It's right outside of the protest, and it's as Pierce Brosnan is getting off of the ladder, and he runs into Helen Mirren, and then he runs into Ben Kingsley, and he runs into Celia Emery, and it was one shot, and it all had to flow and be timed correctly. And I kept doing it, and it kept going wrong, and I could feel Steven behind me sort of cheering me on, and then we got the perfect take, which is the take in the film, and I go, yes, and he goes, yes, and we high-fived, and it was an amazing moment.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, it feels like a full circle moment almost. It's so many years ago that you got your script and then you're on set with him doing that.
It really was, I have to agree, it was a full circle moment. Yeah.
And in terms of the first time you directed, Adventures in Babysitting, going on set for the first time, you've written these scripts, you've had success in that way, but then going on and being like, oh, I've got to now kind of control this ship, I've got to steer it.
Yeah.
What is the pressure like the first time you do that?
First day was terrifying because you always think you're going to get fired. And you're in it's your first film, vulnerable position it was Touchstone Disney Studios, so they could fire me, So I was terrified. And on the second day, the cameras froze and we lost our day.
Oh my God.
It was so cold outside. So I thought, well, they're going to fire me. It's over. And then third day, things started to pick up, and I started to feel a little more confident. And then after about 2 weeks, it usually is 2 weeks for a director. Once you make those first 2 weeks, if you survive, then they won't fire you. And I realized they liked what they were seeing, and I wasn't getting fired. So,
it's such a classic. And in terms of, for young directors, young writers coming into the industry, do you have any advice?
My advice is it goes back to what I did, because I still feel that even though independent film is sort of the way to go, make an independent feature, and it's getting more inexpensive for directors. You're almost on the level. Sean Baker did it. You can shoot a film on your iPhone. So there is that. But I always push writing. I say, if you have no money and you really feel that you need to work in this business, prove yourself as a writer, which is difficult for directors who don't write. That to me is always, that's a tougher thing to get into. But we have this company that's been going, for 10 years strong. We just produced Nosferatu with Robert Eggers, and it was a company formed to help first-time filmmakers realize the dream of making their first feature. And all of the directors we've worked with have written their own films. No one we haven't done one film where someone else was the writer and someone was the director. So most directors these days are writers first and foremost. So I push that. I say, you can write a script, very inexpensive. Probably the most expensive thing is printing it and buying the paper to print the script on. And then that's really a great start.
Well, The Witch, Robert Eggers, that was something you produced, I believe.
Yeah.
That was his first film.
Yes.
And it's amazing to see how far he's come. I mean, The Witch is incredible. Nosferatu was insane.
Yeah.
I always imagine that, if you're writing something and then directing, there must be a certain amount of control because you've created that world. What do you prefer? Do you prefer writing something and then being able to direct it, or is it quite nice to step in as a director and think this is someone else's world, but I'm now taking the helm?
Well, you usually are forced as a director to write. So even if you've got a script, I mean, particularly on Thursday Murder Club, Katie Brand wrote a terrific script, but every day as you're shooting, you come up with new ideas. The actors inspire you. So at night, I would get back to where I was living, and I would either rewrite the scene for the next day, or I would call Richard Osman if I had something else that I had to do, and Richard Osman would help me with the scene. So we were constantly writing. And also it happens on set. If an actor says, this line doesn't feel real, I don't feel like I can say it, you have to write. So I'm utilizing my tools as a writer constantly. You always have to do that.
I guess it's just tweaking, isn't it, the whole time?
It is. It's always tweaking, and it's always being on your toes. I don't really understand how. I guess if you're a director who doesn't write, you should probably have a writer next to you at all times.
That must be hard.
To get you out of to get you out of any jam. You know?
Yeah. Two of the biggest films that you've done, I'm a big fan of both of them, Harry Potter and Home Alone, are that, the central performance, the children in those films are the focal point, and you can't get that wrong, otherwise the whole film is off.
Right.
In terms of casting, they always say don't work with animals and kids.
Right.
Can it be quite difficult, kind of homing a child's performance?
It is. It is, because I have a tendency, particularly with Home Alone and Harry Potter, to choose kids who don't have a tremendous amount of experience. Because for me, it was always the kids who were sort of stars on, like, the Disney Channel, or kids who have done a lot of television. They get they're very quick learners, and they're very smart kids, so they learn quickly. But the problem is they start to perform without using their essential instincts. So what you're getting is what I call a Disney-fied performer, someone who's not thinking about what's going on internally. To avoid that, you have to cast kids who really have not had a lot of experience. So that's what we did with Macaulay Culkin, who had only done one film prior to Home Alone. And on Potter, none of the kids, except for Daniel Radcliffe, did 1 day or 2 days on David Copperfield, a BBC show. And the kids were learning how to be actors on the set. So part of my job was becoming an acting teacher. And, we had to use 3 cameras on the Potter movie, because the kids would do a line, like they'd be focused and they'd say a line, and then they'd look at the camera and wave and smile and look at all the crew and be like, wow, I'm in a film. I'm in Harry Potter, or I'm playing Harry Potter, or I'm Hermione. So
a lot of cuts.
That's why that first film, there were a lot of cuts. The second film we were able to, and that was 160 plus days by the time we got to the second film. The second film, they started to feel comfortable, and I could actually do a shot of all 3 of them at once, tracking, and not have to worry about coverage until the very end of the scene. So they really became actors on those films.
Those two, the first 2 films, are my favorite of the series.
Oh, thank you.
And they're not my favorite books.
Right.
So whatever you did there, it feels like the magic was really captured in those first 2. Just something about the way it was shot, the performances, everything about it. You've got kids. Were they like into Harry Potter when this opportunity came around?
Well, it wasn't. The weird thing, it wasn't really an opportunity, because I refused. I was in America at the time, and Harry Potter was it was starting to bubble. It wasn't, I don't think, as big as it was here. And my daughter, Eleanor, who I formed Maiden Voyage with back then, she was 10 years old, and she kept saying, Dad, you have to read this book. And I would say, I'm not interested. I'm not interested in that particular genre. Finally, after months of, I said, okay, I'll read it. And I read it. And again, it was sort of like the Thursday Murder Club experience. I fell in love with the book. And I called my agent and said, I'd really love to direct this movie. And she said, yeah, you and 25 other directors. So it was essentially a situation where I had to interview for the job. And, I think I eventually got the job because I had cast Home Alone and they thought that I would be valuable in terms of casting the kids, which I'll take. If that's the reason you hired me, that's great. But there were a whole slew of reasons why I wanted to do the film, and I'm glad I was able to do it.
Mrs Doubtfire, that is a film that has got me through when I've been ill. Always put it on, it just makes me laugh no matter what. It's I just love that film. It means a lot to me. I always think about the fact that Robin Williams would have been amazing in Harry Potter. Was there ever a thought that maybe he could have been in it as Hagrid because you worked with him multiple times before that came about?
Well, the interesting thing is we had, and it was not only imposed by J.K. Rowling, but all of us, the team at the time, we were very centered on the fact that only British actors could be in the film.
Right.
And that was sort of the way I approached it. So Robin, not being British, wasn't really in contention until we were getting, and I produced the third one, and J.K. Rowling said something about Robin might be great as Professor Lupin. And I thought, yeah, he'd be interesting. And Alfonso was directing at the time, and we talked about Robin a little bit, and Alfonso eventually went with, I think, David Thewlis.
Very different.
Very different, yeah. But that was Alfonso was the director, and I respected his wishes, but that was about as close as it would have come, yeah.
And in terms of Mrs. Doubtfire, because I love it so much, I just love to ask. There's loads of rumours that there's got multiple versions of that film because Robin Williams did a lot of improvisation. There was a sort of a more fruity version, if you will, of the script and more swearing and things like that. Is there an alternate version of that film at all, or is that complete internet
There's no
rubbish?
alternate version, but there is this desire that we have, and we're talking about it now. There's almost probably 2 million feet of film that was shot.
Wow.
That film, all of that negative has been preserved. That negative is in some sort of vault in the middle of a desert in Nevada. So I've been fascinated with it. When I found that out about 2 years ago, I became obsessed and really wanted to do a documentary unearthing all of that footage and showing the audience Robin's process.
Yeah, wow.
And so we're planning on doing this documentary.
Amazing.
It's going to take about 5 or 6 years, but we're going to do it. Yeah.
Go through all the film and
Yeah.
everything else. Wow.
Now for a quick break. We'll be back to the episode shortly. If you enjoyed this episode and want to support us, get early access and exclusive content and episodes, click to join our YouTube channel and become a member now.
Please leave us a positive rating. Add us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok at Life in Film Pod. Essentially, please like and subscribe everything. It makes a huge difference. Thank you. Life in Film has partnered with Betterhelp to provide you with access to the largest online therapy service in the world. And it can all be done from the comfort of your own home, from a phone, tablet or laptop. No commute, cutting down travel costs, and most importantly, it's affordable. With over 1,000 therapists in the UK, Betterhelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a wide variety of expertise in mental health. If you need someone to talk to and you're thinking of giving therapy a go, Betterhelp is a great option. And being a listener of the podcast, you get 10% off. That's 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/lifeinfilm. That's betterhelp.com/lifeinfilm. We are sponsored by movieposters.com. Are you a movie fan? I presume you are. Well, at movieposters.com, you can shop for all your favourite posters in one place. The #1 source for high-quality, authentic movie posters. From new releases to cult classics and 100% authentic originals. Thinking of having a browse? Well, if you see a poster that tickles your fancy, as a listener of the podcast, you get 10% off. That's 10% off with promo code LifeInFilm10. That's promo code LifeInFilm10. So why not give it a go? And back to the show.
Would you care to join us to discuss things further?
Who is us?
I'm sorry, how rude of me. We're the Thursday Murder Club.
wonderful. I am a huge fan. So anytime one of your films comes out, projects, I'm like gunning for it. This one has an insane cast. How did it come about? How did you get involved?
I was sent the script by the producer, Jennifer Todd, and I was sent the book first. And I realized to make a successful film out of a book, I have to be a fan. It's kind of like the situation I was in with Harry Potter. I fell in love with the material. And this really sort of spoke to me on a lot of levels, more so than just a murder mystery. I love the humor, and I really responded to the emotion. It felt very emotional to me. So I knew it was something I could direct and something I could sink my teeth into. And also, when I read Harry Potter initially, I made notes in the margins about who I wanted to play the roles, Maggie Smith, Richard Harris, Alan Rickman, and they all said yes. 20 years later, I've done some films, and my first choices usually don't say yes. And then on this one, I had Helen Mirren and Pierce, and they all agreed to do the film, all my first choices. So it was sort of like this sort of spiritual thing that was meant to be. It was kind of great.
Well, when you see the cast, it does feel like the first choices. I mean, I can't imagine anyone else.
Neither can I. Thank you.
But in terms of, I mean, you worked with Pierce Brosnan multiple times, working with him now, and it's so many years later, say since Mrs Doubtfire or, Percy Jackson. How has that relationship changed, that collaboration? Has it evolved in any way?
It's only evolved in the fact that I saw Pierce work opposite Robin Williams, and Pierce was able to hold his own against Robin in terms of, Pierce was playing more of a straight man role in Mrs Doubtfire, but he still had this intense sort of comedic timing that I kept with me. You know, I remembered that, and all these years later, I needed someone who was really a good comedian as well as an actor, and I thought of Pierce.
I mean, his comic timing, and as you say in Mrs Doubtfire, he steals the show, really. I mean, Robin's the big character, but he's got the nice little moments you always remember.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And in this, he's so funny as well. All the performances are great in this, and it's the kind of film where, even though it murders in the title, it's quite a cozy, comforting movie to watch.
Right.
And it feels right at home on Netflix as well. Was that always the plan, to have it go straight to streaming and not a cinema release?
No, I mean, I shot this film for cinemas. I shot this film as a theatrical film, and knowing it would get a week release in the UK. So we have 1 week we're playing in theaters here, and we're playing in New York City as well. So I thought it was important that this worked as a film, that you can go into a theater and watch with a group of people. I've seen it with 500 people in a theater. It's such a great experience. So the great thing about Netflix is this is an original film with sort of seasoned classical actors that, you know, other studios were interested, but they didn't want to basically spend the money to make the movie we needed to make. So Netflix came through and made a big budget version of this, and I'm really proud of that. Yeah.
It feels like Netflix, so many more people are going to see it as well. Sad case of like cinema is, you know, a film comes out, people might see it, they might not. It's a real gamble these days, so it's so nice to see a film this great with this cast, and you know it's guaranteed to be seen by people. I mean, streaming and cinema, it's completely changed over the years.
Right.
How, for you and your career, I mean, you going back and, you know, you obviously wrote Gremlins and Goonies and all these amazing things. How has that evolved for you as a writer-director in terms of, you know, going from cinema to streaming? Did that change a lot of things for you?
I think the idea was that as long as there is some life in the cinema, you know, as I said with Thursday Murder Club, we get a week in the cinema, which doesn't sound like a lot,
cool.
but at least people get to see the movie as I intended it to be seen. The thing about streaming is it's very exciting because on the same day, at the same time around the world, people can hit play and watch the movie. And that's very exciting, you know. So there is that, and you also don't have to worry about opening weekend box office. You realize that the film can sort of live for more than 2 days, you know, Friday. By the end of the day, Saturday, if you're playing in a theater, you know if you have a future or not, if the film is a bomb or if it's a success. With streaming, you have some time to let people talk about it, to get to know, and people can see it when they want to, you know.
And you mentioned there that you're a fan of these books, and that's how you kind of discovered it and got involved. Is there a chance, I mean, it's probably too early days, but, you know, there are other books is there a chance that there's going to be more of this? I'd love to see more of this world.
I think we would, like, the cast and myself would love to do another one. We had such an incredible time making the film. And it's not that it was all laughs and fun. It was really the fact that we were all sort of this unified group who wanted to make a great film. And everyone, you know, you would think that all of these actors who've been working for 40 years would get a little tired, a little cynical. It's like they're making their first movie. It's that exciting.
If you enjoyed this episode and you want to support us, get early access and exclusive content, all ad-free, click and join the Life in Film YouTube channel and become a member now. Thank you to Chris, thank you to Jenny and Holly at Organic PR, thank you to IDPR, and thank you to Netflix. As always, thank you to our sponsors, movieposters.com and Betterhelp.
Chris, this is
Thank you so much. That was fun. Thank you.
Man.
Thanks
Thank
so
you
much.
You guys give up or you're thirsty for more?